Me and Campbell, we were the first ones to start doing all this locking and hitting the floor, and I'm this girl going this way, he's going, it was just incredible.
Crazy enough, I got there when I was at the peak of my career as an X-ray adult star. So it was kind of like a scandalous moment for me at that point in my life,
Soul Train was more than a show, it was the stage, the place where black culture got to flex, fashion, funk, footwork, all in one smooth, sweaty groove. But behind the smiles, split kicks, and Saturday morning magic, there was a line you didn't cross. Some dancers became legends, others just they lost, but because Soul Train had rules, most of them unspoken. Step too far out of line, steal too much spotlight, or dare to build your own lane. You might find yourself off the set and out of the story. No headlines, no goodbyes, just gone. But today we're running it for the producers.
I was this shy, quiet type, but when the cameras hit, I knew I had to do my thing.
You got it!
To Jodie Watley, who walked away to create her own spotlight. These are the dancers Soul Train tried to forget. Let's start with Heather Hunter.
Crazy enough, I got there when I was at the peak of my career as an X-ray adult star. So it was kind of like a scandalous moment for me at that point in my life,
Back then, Saturday afternoons were for turning on the TV and watching dancers who seemed larger than life. She was one of them. You might not have known her name, but you knew her glow. She had this energy that pulled you in and made it hard to look away. While everybody else was clapping and cheering, she was juggling something nobody guessed. When the show ended each week, she switched into a different world. Under another name, she worked in adult films. To her, it wasn't a big scandal, it was a way to keep the lights on. 2 jobs, 1 goal, survive. For a while, she balanced both without a hitch. She'd dance on set, smile for the cameras, then slip out and handle the other side of her life. Nobody asked questions. If they knew, they kept quiet. But in that business, secrets don't last. Maybe someone recognized her, maybe somebody started talking. However it happened, the wrong people found out. And then, without warning, everything changed. No angry meeting, no final performance. The producers never said why, they didn't have to. It was clear her other job didn't fit the image they wanted to sell, so they erased her. She could have been a star everyone remembered by name. Instead, she became one of those whatever happened to her stories people trade behind the scenes. She didn't lose her shine. She was pushed out of the spotlight by people who cared more about keeping up appearances than letting her be real. Next, Pat Davis.
I was this shy, quiet type, but when the cameras hit, I knew I had to do my thing.
You got it!
Before Soul Train even figured out his own style, Pat was already owning the stage. She wasn't just another dancer in the line, she was the show. Full costumes, bright makeup, moves that looked like they were made for a cartoon, and outfits so wild they could have come straight from a disco ball's closet. While everyone else was keeping it simple or a little edgy, Pat turned the floor into her own runway. They called her Madame Butterfly, and it fit perfectly. She was big, bold, and impossible to forget. People didn't just recognize her, they knew her, which was pretty rare back then. No viral clips, no credits on the screen, just her energy taking over every episode. And then just like that, she was gone. No big announcement, no clear reason. The word going around was that the show started changing its image. They wanted something sleeker, more polished. Disco was taking over, and with it came a new. She'd always been the one who stood out. Some folks said the producers were trying to make everyone match, like having dancers blend into one neat picture was more important than letting them shine. So they didn't push her out in public, they just stopped showing her. Quiet edits, less camera time, until it was like she'd never been there. But anyone who watched in those early days knows the truth. Pat wasn't background, she was the heartbeat of the floor. Next, Don Campbell.
Well, a lot of people got to know that it's not so easy being some famous dancer. I went a whole year getting laughed at.
Dancers like Rerun and Jodie were already fan favorites, but Don Campbell was different from the start. Don didn't just join in, he flipped the whole idea of dancing on its head. He'd freeze in place out of nowhere, then burst into wild, playful steps with a grin. They called it locking. It was fresh, loud, and impossible to ignore. Every time Don hit the floor, people tuned in to see what he'd pull off, but behind the cameras, things weren't as smooth. Don and the other dancers noticed something. They were the main reason people kept watching, but nobody was paying them. No money, no real credit, just applause and empty promises. Don finally spoke up. He asked to be paid for what he brought to the show, That's when everything changed. The producers didn't want to deal with it. One day he was dancing, the next he was gone. No warning, no goodbye, just vanished. Instead of getting bitter, Don made a new plan. He joined up with other talented dancers, some who left on their own, some who were pushed out, and created the Lockers. That crew took locking out of the Soul Train studio and into the big time. They were on TV specials, stages across the world, even in movies. In the end, Don proved something important. Nobody could erase what he started. Soul Train thought they could cut him loose and keep the magic going. But Don showed everyone he didn't need their platform. He built his own and made it bigger. Next, rerun Barry. Fred was never just another dancer in the back row. He was the reason you kept watching. Loud outfits, bigger moves, and that face you couldn't forget. When he hit the stage, it felt like someone cranked funk up to full blast and let it loose. Before the TV fame, Fred was already making noise with the Lockers. Don Campbell's crew that took off after Soul Train showed him the door. Red hat, bright suspenders, that signature bounce. Fred didn't just dance, he lit up every room he walked into. Eyes always found him first. He had main character energy before sitcoms ever thought to call, and call they did. Hollywood showed up and basically told him, just be yourself, but even bigger. That's how Rerun from What's Happening was born. Same moves, same spirit, but now he was cracking jokes on primetime TV, and people loved it, and no drama, no quiet exit. He didn't get pushed out or fade into the background, he just moved up. The Lockers were already heading in different directions, and Soul Train was busy changing its whole style. Fred left at the perfect moment. He didn't get cut, he got cast. Most folks remember him as Rerun, the sitcom star. But if you know the whole story, you know Fred was already a star before the cameras ever rolled. He was a one-man show long before the laugh track kicked in. Next, Dita Joe Freeman.
Me and Campbell, we were the first ones to start doing all this locking and hitting the floor, and I'm this girl going this way, he's going, it was just incredible.
People tuned in thinking they were just there for the music, but let's be real, they stayed for Dita. She wasn't some extra in the background. From the second Joe pulled her up on stage in the middle of a set, she flipped everything upside down. Most dancers would have played it safe, maybe a few steps and a smile. Not Dita. She hit the floor like it was her own headlining show. Kicks, split, spins. She gave it everything she had. Stage presence turned up to 100. After that moment, she became the one everybody watched for. You couldn't guess what she'd do next, and that's why you had to keep watching. Her dancing wasn't just about keeping up with the music. It felt like the songs were made to keep up with her. Even Diana Ross noticed and pulled her into bigger circles. No matter where Dita went, the energy followed it. Then out of nowhere, it got quiet. Nobody really knew what happened. Some people whispered that the top brass weren't too happy she was stealing the spotlight. Others said she was tired of playing second string and was ready to step out as her own boss. But the truth, Dita didn't get kicked off. She looked around, saw she'd already hit the ceiling, and decided it was time. She packed up while the applause was still loud. She didn't hang around waiting for someone else to call the shots. She walked away with her shine intact, no regrets. She didn't ride the train until the last stop. She stepped off while everyone was still clapping. And then lastly for today, Jodie Watley. Jodie didn't step onto Soul Train looking for trouble. She came in with purpose. Even as a teenager, just 14, she moved like she had her path mapped out, while other kids were worried about homework. She was on national TV every weekend, serving fresh looks and clean moves that made her stand out without even trying. She didn't have to be loud to get noticed. She had that cool confidence that pulled your eyes to her. Didn't take long before Don Cornelius picked up on it. He wasn't just scouting dancers, he was quietly putting together something bigger. That something became Shalimar. And when it came time to pick the faces for the group, Jodie was a clear choice. Of course she was. While some dancers were fading from the screen, Jodie was already making smart moves. She didn't get sidelined. She leveled up. Not too long after, she walked away from both the show and the group, not because of any fallout, but because she was thinking ahead. Jodie never planned to stay in the background. She was aiming for the spotlight, and she got it. She went solo, scored hits, won awards, and set trends without even trying. She didn't have to fight for attention. People naturally followed her lead. Before all the fame, she was that young girl in the Soul Train line, quietly confident, already plotting her next step, and proving that sometimes the biggest stars start off with a plan nobody else can see.